So now we'll move on to matters arising, which I hope all the SABs are prepped for. So first up, we've got the facility charges with DMW. So this is the matters arising. So this is the policies that were passed at the last AGM, or Open Council. So we're now having an update on those a year on. And each SAB has got a minute to speak about each matter.
I've been left a paragraph by DM to say here. So regarding facilities charges, well, we've been undertaking various reviews of charges and spaces this year, including a wider storage review, which has had hundreds of respondents. A facilities charge schedule was approved by both the Student Groups Committee in February and then also passed through the CMT subcommittee of the Trustee Board. Work has been delayed on making this more public online, but that's mainly because the charges document with regards to technology is now becoming part of a large document about facilities in general, which should be even more beneficial to student groups. So once that's all done, that'll be put up there and available for all students.
Brilliant, thank you. Next, we've got AU clubs and societies granting budget from DG.
So the reason that we just to explain for a few of these why they might be different from the sabbatical who's been leading on it, we kind of mixed them around a bit between the team because Dave Martin today has been lucky enough to be invited along to Assessment Centre, and Becky Thomas is actually off today at the House of Lords as part of her Bees campaign. So they're off doing really good, important things, so we kind of swapped it around a bit in the team. So for this one in particular around funding for the student groups, societies and AU clubs, we took that principle into the trustee board when we were doing our funding last year and indeed carried it on to this year. I'm very happy to say that due to kind of the size of the university increasing, therefore increasing the size of block grant for students, Susu as an organisation has been able to increase in 3 separate occasions now the funding which has gone out pretty much generally for all of the zones around Susu. We kind of had a difficult time in the last process of finance subcommittee trying to find ways to get back to a balanced budget so next year's AGM can be happy with the finances we've had this year. But in those processes, I'm happy to say that we've been able to generally leave all increases in student group funding as they were, so not cutting them back even though we found cuts from other places in the organisation. So the policy has really helped. It's meant that we can put a lot of increased funding into different student groups.
Thank you. Okay, next in the minutes we've got improvements in food provision, which is supposed to be done by Becky Thomas. Okay, guessing DG's doing that?
Yep, so in Becky's absence, I'll just quickly go through this. So this was taken to the Student Life Zone Committee, which obviously then replaced what was Welfare Committee last year. And I believe it's also been to Wellbeing Committee since to go through a few areas. I think there have been some improvements that kind of can be reported on more specifically from the Wellbeing Committee side. But obviously one thing I think I've kind of learned from seeing some of the things that Josh has been saying, who's the chair of the Wellbeing Committee, the Wellbeing Committee obviously started this year and so hasn't had a full year yet to kind of implement them. So some improvements are happening. I think we all agree there are still a few more things that we need to do in Susu to kind of bring around more healthy food options, whether that be through chicken espagnole or other options. So that work will be continuing. It's not finished, but there's a few good steps we've had this year. So thank you to the Wellbeing Committee and Student Life Zone Committee for the progress they've started to make for Susu.
Brilliant, thank you. Now we've got renovate the activities room. Claire?
So as you may have remembered from, in semester 1, a survey was held and surveyed a number of groups about how they use the activities room and what the specific areas that they would need to improve would be. It had over 50 responses, which for one room is quite important. And the main issue was the state of the flooring and the storage issues, which I don't think will be any surprise to anyone sitting in the room. In semester 2, David Martin's been working on the specifics of the bid and the proposal that was sent to Trustee Board in April, which has meant it's become one of our summer capital projects. In order to kind of decrease the disruption to student groups, it was better to do it over the summer holidays when there's kind of less groups actually needing the space. So it means that we can actually make the work that needs to happen ready for all your activities for freshers next year. And we've also managed to secure some funding from the university for this project. So it is happening, and look forward to a glamorous new activities room in October. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we've got leadership and representation with Ollie Coles. You've moved.
Yeah, I just thought I'd go across. Right, we've created a project group headed up by myself and Becky that is looking at ways in which we can improve the participation of our underrepresented groups. From this project team, we create a survey, which is run in January, aimed at not just women, but all underrepresented groups, and tried to ascertain reasons why they haven't run in elections in the past and why they wouldn't in the future. I've written a report based on the survey results and the diversity data collected from the spring election candidates in 2013 and 2014. and come up with a list of actions. If you do want to see the report, drop me an email, I can forward it on to you. It's quite long, but it's got pretty pictures in it. The actions we've picked up are use the course reps to create a focus groups to ascertain ways in which we can look to break these barriers and develop the Inspiring Women events to other groups. Lobby the university to ensure that all their data records fit the diversity of our student population and publicise just how these elected positions can help you in future careers. We've also created our Inspiring Women event, was held in November this year. We invite inspiring women from around the city, university and within Susu to speak to students, to inspire them to run for elected positions. As mentioned earlier, we plan to develop this over the next year, increasing the Inspiring event to other underrepresented groups. And for the final bit, the Union Council positions were balanced, with one position reserved for female students and one position reserved for male students, and the Open Council positions were split 50-50. Of course, there's another policy potentially coming later, but so I'll leave that for then.
Thank you.
I'm going to the next bit as well. So.
Yep, now we the people are voiced in your Susu.
Yep, as DG said, DM's not here, so I'm doing this on his behalf. Work's begun on this in semester 2 in accordance with his sabbatical plans after elections. Currently, the timeline's been mapped out and the initial process has been discussed to ensure one central hub for ideas, which can then be divided into different categories. Work will begin in late May, June with the draft website, and he will involve Megan, as the new VP-DCI elect, with his process during the handover period. Work will continue over the summer to hopefully be fully implemented and live for Freshers Week at the latest. If anyone does have any ideas, please do get in contact with him. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Now we welcome DMW to talk about Union Council and committee zones.
So the amendments to the rules have been completed. Work will be going ahead to ensure that a zone report is sent around and discussed with union councillors who sit on the various zone committees to add any comments as they see fit, which will then be presented at the final union council in June.
Thank you. It's nice and short and sweet. And finally, the staff-student partnership agreement with Dave Galani.
Yep, so last year at this AGM, the new staff-student partnership agreement was passed by the Open Council, which essentially was a way of updating a really old staff-student protocol that we had for many years before, which wasn't kind of relevant in times of social media, online posting, wasn't relevant in terms of creating partnership between students and staff. If there's anything to go by in terms of the success of this new partnership, there have been no breaches of it this year. So at least in the sense that I haven't had to kind of bear down on anyone, whether they be from media departments or from other groups who are talking about staff. I haven't had to at any point in the year explain you're not okay to attack people who don't have a voice publicly. So there haven't been any issues with it. So in that sense, it's been a real success. I'm very happy I haven't had to use it at all, because obviously it's something which helps make sure that we can help staff and students work together, so you guys can lead the union and they can make sure that it's run the way you want it to. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that finishes matters arising. So next we move on to policy proposals. For those of you who aren't council regulars, I'll give a quick explanation of how this works. So when a policy is proposed, the speaker has up to 3 minutes to speak, and the following against speech is also up to 3 minutes long. The rounds of debate after this are balanced, with 2 minutes either way, followed by a 1 minute summation. There are procedural motions listed on your lovely green voting cards, and these can be called any time by raising your card. I would definitely advise against calling procedural motion E to move to an informal discussion. This is because the ideas have been public for long enough that there should hopefully not be any questions. Informal discussion always takes up more time than just having a debate, and this means that we're less likely to actually have the time to reach the final motions because we've got a lot to get through today. The policies here are ordered with the first few being the policies which were submitted online and had net upvotes. Next, we have policies submitted by students, those submitted by sabbaticals or zone committees, and then one policy which had a net downvote. Finally, there is an emergency policy which has been allowed. Given that David Mendoza-Wilson and Giles Howard both have submitted policies, however they both have to leave to attend a university meeting, AQSC, they've asked if their policies can be moved up the agenda. I'm happy to accommodate this, and as such I propose that the first policy we take is industrial action by university staff, followed by creating a platform to permit direct questions to sabbatical candidates in elections. And after this, we'll continue with the policies in the order of the agenda, if that's okay with everyone else. Yeah? Cool. Then I'll ask for the proposing speech for industrial action by university staff. Oh, and just so you know, when you have your times, if I use the gavel, that means you're out of time.
Gotta love a gavel. Okay, so... Okay. Yep, cool. So, effectively, the reason that I've brought this policy forward First of all, it's because I was asked to do so by both Union Council and the Education Zone Committee, but more importantly because the current and hopefully in a few minutes the old industrial action policy is frankly awful. What it does is that it means that we have to debate, instead of a point of principle, a point of semantics. Every time we debate whether or not strike action is has a severe adverse effect. That's the only word. Otherwise, we're set to support action. Now, my policy that I've written here is set out to be pretty much as neutral as possible. All of the resolves and mandates ensure that we don't actually have a position until council vote on one. So what this means is that this policy actually requires 2 votes. First, when a union, one of the trade unions, votes to have a dispute, Union Council will vote on whether or not they support the dispute. If they support the dispute, there'll then be a vote on whether or not council would support action. Now, if it supports action, then it supports action throughout. In the current policy, the council has to vote on every single instance of action, which has meant that only one union council this year hasn't had a vote, which has also meant that in each council the opinion has been changed due to various reasons, which has been painful and, as you can imagine, embarrassing in university meetings. This means that we would take a principled line, which I think is incredibly important. Now, this can be overruled by council, but only if 10 councillors take the motion back to council and the decision to overturn is supported by 66% of councillors. I believe that means that in the face of something like an assessment boycott, councillors would be able to retake if they have decided, say, to support strikes. This policy ensures neutrality and makes sure that the council votes on how the council wants to side, as opposed to on a point of semantics, which I think it would be is a nonsensical position for us as a serious organisation to be in. For those reasons, and because I spent a lot of time writing this policy and making it as neutral as possible, I beg you please to support the industrial action, the university staff policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against this policy? Would anyone else like to speak for the policy? Okay, well, as I've offered it, would anyone else like to speak against? Well, okay. Dave Mendoza-Walton, would you like a 1-minute summation?
I figure from the fact that no one wants to speak against that we generally think it's a good idea. Just to check that you're not all deciding not to speak against because you have decided to vote against, I just once again urge you, please support this policy. Cheers.
Brilliant, thank you. And now I'm going to give you guys a quick minute to think it through while we have a quick word with the tellers. So if we can have the tellers up to the front, please. Yeah? Okay. Yep. Okay then. Yep. Okay, then now the tellers are in their places and know what we're doing. We're going to take the vote on this policy. So if you would like to raise your cards if you would like to pass the policy. Okay, now keep your hands in the air, because while it's really obvious, we're going to do this and count them so that the tellers know where everyone is, so we work out that everything's working properly. So you're going to be doing loads of this today, so you'll have really good arm muscles by the end of the afternoon. Okay. Sorry, lots and lots of counting going on. Okay, oh, sorry guys, you can put your arms down. Sorry, totally forgot about that. Might get you doing the hokey cokey in a bit. Okay, so we're just doing some adding up at the front here.
You can carry on.
Okay.
We can add while they count. You can carry on.
But you can't, if it's the policy passed?
You need to do nose.
What?
You need to do nose. Those against.
Oh yeah, sorry. So we need to do votes against as well. Do any of you not want to pass the policy? No? Okay. 0. Okay.
138 to 44 carried.
Okay. Policy is carried with 138 for and 44 against. So, woo! Okay, sorry, this will get a bit speedier as we kind of get used to it. Normally we do it all by zappers, so I'm not used to this. So now we're going to move on to policy 2, which is creation of a platform to permit direct questions to sabbatical candidates in elections. And I'll ask Giles Howard if you'd like to come to the stage lectern. You have 3 minutes to introduce your policy.
That's a lot of time. Okay, so this policy is basically born out of the fact that during elections there was the possibility you could ask general questions towards all candidates, but there weren't many forums for asking people directly about their manifestos unless you did it in public. And of course there's not really any recording of that, and I just thought that was a bit of an inefficient way of doing things. So basically this policy it puts demands on the Democracy Zone next year so that they will create a part of the website that will sit alongside or near to manifestos. You can submit questions and get answers from the candidates. You can ask about the manifesto or their views relating to the position, but not anymore. The policy covers things like people asking inappropriate questions, because you have to, as a Susu member, you're required to follow certain policies anyway, and that's written in. And basically, it's an opportunity for good ideas to be expanded on, so you could ask someone a question about how they intend to do something, and they could really expand on how they intend to do it without boring you to death with a very long manifesto. It ensures greater transparency, which is pretty much our union plan. And I sort of get the feeling that maybe we'll see some increased inclusion. That's speculation from my part, really. But I guess maybe we'll have some more people with good ideas running, because there'll be the opportunity for them to expand on them and such. So basically, yeah, just vote for this, please. I think it's a good policy, and it's been through a lot of drafting. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I will ask if anyone wishes to speak against this motion. No? Oh, yeah, okay, Jamie. Okay, so you'll have 3 minutes as well.
Okay, I'm just speaking against this motion because I believe, as running as a sabbatical candidate last year, that I actually got a lot of troll questions through Facebook, and actually having it via a Susu medium, even though it will be moderated, I just don't enjoy it, and I got quite victimised by it, but I didn't complain about it because I don't, but I think this would just feed the trolls. So, no, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak for the motion? Oh, there's so many hands. Oh, you've got procedural motions. No. Okay. Just make it really clear. If you want a procedural motion, card. If not, just hand. Okay. Oh, Jackie, did you see whose hand went up first? Miwash?
I have no idea who that was.
And if I don't see everything, Jackie's my second set of eyes. So.
Hi, talking about trolling, I do feel that raising those questions through a Susu platform would probably solve that problem, because then any questions that wouldn't actually be appropriate to be asked to candidates could very easily be screened out, with good reason and with good transparency behind the process, of course. But I do think that the point you raised, that you get too many troll questions, would in fact be addressed by this policy, not amplified. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak against the policy? Okay, we'll do one more round of fours. Dave Gallardo? Then we'll offer another against.
So having been part of many elections and AGMs over my time kind of as a student, usually I'm the person who would stand up and say very clearly, you have to address your question to everyone because that's the only way to make sure that it's fair and you debate the real issues. But I think Miller and Jamie pointed out the real difficulty with what we currently have as a system is that sometimes people want to be able to go into manifestos and ask real questions about why people have brought up a specific issue that not everyone is going to talk about. And if we don't provide a platform for that as Susu, it does mean that people feel like there is no way to do it in a kind of a productive and a controlled way. So they will go into kind of feeling like there's no way to question candidates when they have any personal issues. They'll do it on Facebook, they'll do it in person, and it becomes an area where I don't think like we're really looking after our candidates then. I would have originally spoken against this policy if Giles hadn't put so many points in there about how this is about bringing out issues. It's about bringing out when someone says in their manifesto they're going to do something that's so random that no other candidate would ever put it in there. You want our students to be able to say, why is our kind of elected leaders, why would they be talking about that? The point about being on the website and being part of Susu means we can make sure it's not a place for people to say, why are you doing that because 3 years ago you got off with that person or whatever. It's something that's just ridiculous for candidates to have to ever talk about. So that's why I think it's going to really help our election system. It will let more students feel like they can get involved in it because they can read a manifesto and then do something with that information. And that's why I think you should vote for it as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak against the policy? No hands? Okay, then I'll offer a 1 minute summation to Giles. If you'd like one, you don't have to take it.
Yeah, please vote for this. There's lots of provisions in the policy for the sort of concerns that have been raised, and I really think that it would be productive. There's moderation in there. I don't think it's too much of an increased workload for the spring working group, so please basically just vote for this.
Okay, thank you. And now we will go to the vote. So if the tellers are ready, then if you would like to approve this policy, then please raise your cards.
We don't have to count everyone if you don't want to.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay. And you can put your arms down.
Thank you. Those next.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay, and if you don't want to approve the policy, then please raise your cards. Okay, if you put your arms down. Okay, so the policy is carried with 174 in favour and 19 against. Thank you. Now we'll go back to the order we've got them on in the agenda. So next up we've got stop charging for debit card use in Susu outlets. Do you have someone to propose this motion? Okay. The proposer isn't here and we don't have a seconder for it, so does anyone volunteer to second it from the floor? Otherwise, it can't be moved. Okay? Josh, if you'd like to come to the front. You've got 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. I think it would be incredibly beneficial to stop card charges in Susu. I know the university have done quite a similar thing from not charging the 25p that they used to charge in the outlets. Trying to save our students money as an organisation. Can't see it detrimentally having a massive effect on our accounts. So please vote for this motion.
Okay, thank you. We've had 2 amendments submitted for this policy. And these will be taken in the order that they were submitted. So the first amendment we have is from Marcus Burton. So if you'd like to come to the front, let me check my debating bylaw. So you can have up to 2 minutes to propose your amendment.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. First of all, I apologise. I thought we'd make it a bit more of a dressed-down AGM. I did promise this the Eva's after party that I'd wear a onesie, and both Katie and Sophia have not delivered, so make of that what you will. About this amendment, it is essentially about two things. Firstly, it is about communicating clearly to students the impact that this policy might, and I'm not going to come down one side or the other on that, the impact this policy might have. So it's about making sure that if this does have an impact, we tell students that why this change has happened. And then there's a mandate there that says where they have increased, the union president should clearly advertise this at the point of sale. So David will next year ensure, if this policy passes, there are little signs everywhere saying, you might have noticed that we've gotten rid of debit card charges, but prices have also increased, if that does happen. So please, do vote for this amendment, because it means that students will actually understand what's happening with their union in a clear and transparent way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, would anyone like to oppose the amendment? No? Okay. Would anyone like to speak for the amendment? So I'm guessing no one's changed their mind in the last 10 seconds and now wants to oppose it. So now we will have up to 1 minute summation if you'd like it. I'm going to remind you all, you don't need to take the summation when it's offered.
Thank you, Katie. Please vote for it, because it's really good. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Okay, so now we're going to vote on this amendment. So if you'd like to raise your cards if you would like to pass the amendment. We don't need to count. No. Okay, and arms down. And if you don't want to pass the amendment, then please raise your cards. Okay, so the amendment is passed. Woo. Okay, now we'll move on to Amendment B, which is submitted by Gabriella De Senza.
Before you declare, you need to check the online vote.
Oh, bugger, of course. Okay.
Hi everyone. Basically, the purpose of this amendment was to say, even though getting rid of debit card charges sounds like a really great idea and could be really beneficial, the full repercussions of doing this have not been made clear to the students. So I feel like that's almost a little bit dishonest to do that. And it may potentially lead to things such as rising prices in the outlets and cutbacks in other areas of our students' unions, such as societies. So, done.
Okay, cool, thank you. Sorry. Would anyone like to oppose this amendment? Would anyone else like to speak for the amendment? Because I've got to offer it. Would anyone like to oppose the amendment again? No? Okay, then I will offer a summary if you'd like a 1 minute summation. No? Okay, then we'll move to the vote. So if you could raise your cards if you want this amendment to be approved. Okay. Yeah, and down. And if you don't want the amendment to be approved? Okay, thank you. Now we've got to do what I forgot to do last time, which is check with the online votes as well. Okay, so it's accepted? Yep, okay, so the amendment is passed. Okay, so now we'll go back to the policy itself. So, would anyone like to speak against the policy? You'll have up to 3 minutes for this. Miwash, okay?
Hi, as it so happens, I'm one of the students in Susu that's lazy enough not to use the ATM right next to the shop and to pay the debit card fee quite frequently. It happens to be 15p currently. Personally, I do not see anything that's unfair about that, given the amount of facilities we have for just, getting money out. And the fee only applies, I believe, when you pay under £5. Which is very minimal indeed. I do not think that there is much point in taxing Susu's finances to kind of accommodate to lazy people such as myself. I think it's much better to spend this money elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a procedural motion from the floor. So, sorry. Okay. Can we have a microphone to David Blarney, by any chance? Sorry, it's just so everyone in the room can hear.
I'd like to propose procedural motion C to refer the question to another body or person.
Okay, you've got a minute to propose that, if you'd like to come to the front.
Okay, so I feel, unfortunately, as kind of the amendments and the people speaking against this have already said, we don't fully understand the repercussions that this might mean if we pass this policy. Although it's a nice idea to discuss it, and I do think we honestly should discuss it because it might turn out it's the best way forward, if you give students the choice of removing a card charge and say, would you like to remove a card charge, I think that's kind of a false dichotomy of what we're offering students. So I think if I allow this to go forward, this is easily going to pass. Since this motion has gone forward, I kind of looked with our commercial manager and found out that this actually could cost the union a lot of money, it could reduce service, and so ultimately I'd like to propose that we move this to trustee board so they can call a referendum on the topic. I think this is something we should allow. I know, the R word. I know, people, not on the NUS, on whether this is something that should go forward. We have found out that this would cost the union between £13,000 and £17,000 initially if we remove the card charge, and also we have a quote from the university catering manager saying that it has caused an increased queue in their business so far.
Procedural motion? Yep.
Can't do a procedural motion on a procedural motion.
You can't do a what?
Can't do a procedural motion.
That's fine.
Okay, then you've got like 4 seconds.
So that's why I think ultimately we don't know the damage this could cause, so we should allow this to be debated properly with both sides heard, and let's do a fun referendum.
Okay.
To get in before you go to the vote, so you can't do it then.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak against the procedural motion? No? Okay, then we... Oh, yeah, Miwash. Okay, you will also have up to a minute, but when I gavel, that means stop.
I'm sorry, I do not believe that passing this to a referendum will change anything. If you ask people the same question at the referendum, they're going to pass it. It is my opinion that we should vote against this policy right here, right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now we will move to a vote on the procedural motion. So if you'd like to raise your cards if you want this to be passed to trustee board. Okay, if we could have the tellers counting, please. It's a bit smattered in places.
Hand to eye to brain coordination.
Okay, put your arms down. Okay, and if you wouldn't like to propose to move this to the trustee board? Okay, that's just one. So this policy will be passed to trustee board. Okay, so now we're moving on to new seats for the cube. So, someone here to propose this motion? No? Oh, hello.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so you have up to 3 minutes to propose this.
Cool. Right, so new seats for the Cube. The Cube was built in 2002, so the seats are now 10 years old. It's such an intricate system that they're being constantly used for union films, they're used in like open days and all sorts of conferences. It's getting to the point now where they're constantly breaking, and it's becoming a lot more difficult for like facilities to like repair them. It's kind of getting to the point where they need to be like they need to be fixed because they can't be constantly repaired. Because like societies can't use it, it's really uncomfortable, and from a comfort point of view, like even if we did like bring it down to 250 seats, that's not an issue because like from a union film's point of view, like people like we can put on loads of screenings and stuff. It's a case of when the seats have been broken, we've been very close to cancelling films, but also societies have been like not able to use this because they do malfunction a lot and it does cause issues. Like when they do malfunction, people are just like, what do we do? Because you have to get facilities and all sorts of stuff. Whereas if we spent more time actually like replacing the whole like seats tier system, then it would like be better for like everyone overall. They are dying rapidly and there isn't a quick fix, so we do need to put the money in for it. They've been fixed so many times and it's just getting ridiculous now. It will improve the experience for so many people, the UF volunteers, cinema goers, clubs and societies. It will like reduce the stress on the facilities. I mean, you'll see in your folded out booklet things as a statistic about union films. It shows how successful it is and what a key part of like Susu it is. It delivers a great thing to its like members as an alternative to like a club night or something. And without a good seating system, you wouldn't be able to have conferences in there. You wouldn't be able to have all sorts of stuff. So investing the money now will make sure that it's there for the future. And that's pretty much all I've got to say.
Thank you. Okay, we've got an amendment to this, which has been proposed by Emily Shepherd. So we'll now do the amendment. Yes, Marcus? So this is to move to the vote on the amendment?
We haven't had it proposed yet. You have to propose first. You have to move it.
Okay, it has been moved first, so we need to have the speech. Okay, so Shep, if you'd like to come, you've got... forgotten my numbers now. So that was a brilliant noise, wasn't it? Felt like Tarzan. Okay, you can have up to 2 minutes to propose your amendment.
Thanks. I probably won't need 2 minutes. The policy itself is completely fine. I'm just making a small change to it because one of the resolves is of mandating the union president to do something. It should be a mandate. I'm only making this change because we've had policies in the past where we haven't done this properly and it's resulted in the policies slipping through the net. It's resulted in people kind of not really doing it. So I'm just making a small change, not changing the meaning at all. I just want to make the policy correct to make sure that if it gets passed, it actually gets actioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Because he thinks it's a dumb amendment that doesn't deserve to be spoken about. Okay, would anyone like to speak against this amendment? No? Okay, would anyone else like to speak for the amendment? No? So I guess none of you changed your mind and want to speak against the amendment? Okay, in which case I will offer a summation of up to a minute if you would like it. No? Okay, then we'll move to the vote on this amendment. So if you could raise your cards if you want to pass the amendment. Okay, and down. And if you don't want to pass the amendment, then please raise your card. Okay, thank you. Okay, then the amendment is carried. Okay, so now we will go back to the policy at hand. So would anyone like to speak against this policy? No? No one wants to speak against? Does anyone else like to speak for? Does anyone like to speak against? Fine. Okay, then I will offer a summation of up to a minute. No? Okay. Don't want the summation, so we'll move to the vote. So if you would like to raise your cards, if you would like to have new seats for the cube as the policy passed, raise your hands. Okay. We don't need the tellers. Tellers, it's okay. We're cool. Okay, and down. And if you wouldn't like the policy to be passed, then please raise your cards. Okay, then the policy is passed. Okay, now we have delivering for our student groups with a bank of Susu. Marcus, you've got up to 3 minutes. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Okay. Hi, everyone. So this policy grew out of some of my own work. Oh no, the speech has just gone. There we go. So this policy grew out of some of my own experiences as president of the English Society and also some work by Susu's head of finance. So thank you to John for advising me on this one. Dealing with retail banks as the president of a society is very hard. You go in there and you say to the cashier that you're from a student group and their eyes kind of glaze over and they begin to treat you like an idiot. I've actually tried changing signatories on my society's account all year, and the whole year I haven't managed it. They lost the paperwork, then they found the paperwork, then they lost it again, and then they lost records of the whole process. And we just couldn't muster the effort to start again. We even tried opening a new account with a different bank, and they lost the paperwork as well. It's incredibly difficult, incredibly frustrating, and it means our students are being let down. Susu can act as a bank for its student groups. We have the cash recycling equipment to enable this, and as you can see from the policy, one student group is already using the equipment in this way. We would be acting as a bank and regulated as a bank by the Financial Conduct Authority, but we're already authorised on the Financial Services Register, and we wouldn't be offering credit within the scope of this policy, and we wouldn't even be the first students' union to act in this way. As I said, the unions at Sheffield and Leeds are already acting as banks for their student groups. Voting for this policy means we will offer our student groups a service which competes with those of the very best students' unions and delivers for our student groups, which are the front lines of our union. Bank of Susu should offer a service, as it says in the policy, which competes with those of retail banks and whose customer service standards are nothing less than exceptional. Groups should be able to deposit, withdraw and transfer funds, including by direct debit and standing order, which came out of the council idea session I had, as they can with retail banks, and have online access to statements and key banking functions at any time, anywhere. So, this policy ensures all of this and ensures that the rollout of the Bank of Susu happens in a safe, controlled manner that minimises all the operational and legal risks, and by phasing its launch across years to 2016-17 or sooner at the discretion of Susu Trustee Board. This is not about Susu taking groups' money away or saying groups can't be trusted with their money. It's simply providing a service to them that demonstrates how important all our student groups are. We have, I think it's now 300 and something student groups, if Jamie... Sorry? 309. Finally 300, yay. So it's demonstrating how important these are to us. So if you believe our student groups are vital to us as a union, if you believe that they're supporting them when they're being let down by others, and if you believe that we should be taking our rightful place at the cutting edge of the students' union movement, then please vote for this policy, and please vote to deliver for our student groups with the Bank of Susu. Thank you again to John, and also to Dave Martin and Guy for all the hard work they're putting in to make this AGM a success.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak against this policy? No? Would anyone else like to speak for the policy? Yeah, okay. Jamie Hemingway, would like to take the lectern?
Yep, as student groups officer, this would completely benefit all the groups. I've had so many people come up to me throughout the year saying, how can I help with this? And this would be a perfect solution for our student groups.
Okay, thank you. Now, just because I've got to offer it, would anyone like to speak against the policy? Okay, then I suggest that we move to a vote. So if you would like to raise your cards, if you would like to vote for this policy to be approved. Okay, and down. And if you don't want the policy to be approved? Okay, and we'll just check with our online digits. Yep, okay, the policy is passed. Okay, now we're moving on to preventing censorship in Susu. Still doesn't say on my piece of paper. Okay, so if I can welcome Jade, you've got 3 minutes to propose it.
Start whenever? Yep. Okay. So this is just a policy, as Kate said, preventing censorship within Susu. A number of incidents involving censorship have occurred over my 3 years here, and they have reoccurred. There's not been very many of them, but there have been some. And so this is just formal guidelines from prevent this to occurring again. It's a reasonable policy. We've made it very watertight, so it includes things, but it doesn't allow for things like just personal attacks and things like that, or things that would be offensive to come forwards. There's been lots of consultation about this. I've talked a lot about this with our media departments, other students who have been affected by this, and just general students. It just basically ensures that the system that we have is upheld in its entirety, so there's no kind of slips through the net as has happened in the past. It ensures that we keep our values of transparency, democratic and student-led, protects our open democracy that we have here, and it just also reiterates the importance of our media and the importance of their kind of independence as well. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My amendment as well.
Yep. So Jade submitted an amendment to this motion herself. So Jade can accept this amendment?
Yeah.
She submitted it. So we've got an amendment to this, which is removing... Oh, snazzy. So this is the amendment here. So Jade has accepted this amendment to her policy? Nope. It's cool. Okay, so if anyone would like to speak against this policy, please let me know. No? Would anyone else like to speak for the policy? Oh, Henry? Okay. You've got up to 2 minutes.
So Jade has put a lot of work in this, speaking with the other media departments and speaking with the relevant people. I think it just sets down a strong foundation of ensuring that the current good system we have of questioning the people that run our union, whether it's through questions to Union Council, whether it's on sabbatical blogs, whatever kind of way that it looks.
We've got a procedural motion on the floor. Wait, what?
Could I finish my speech first?
No, I'll stop the time quickly. Okay. Okay, if you could come to the front and talk to Guy, and then we'll let Henry finish his speech, so we can be efficient.
So I think this work has been put in to make sure that whatever way that we use to question our officers, that it's clear and it's transparent and that people know what is happening in the process it undergoes. The reason that the amendment was submitted, which I fully agree with Jade in, is that the values of the union ensure that there wouldn't be undue pressure put on members by any officer to prevent kind of voluntary enforced censorship, and that the values that we uphold currently would prevent that kind of voluntary censorship, as you could call it, happening.
Not accept it in.
Thank you. Yep.
Or he can move B and take parts and take that as a part. Now it's in.
B? Okay, cool. Okay, sorry, procedural motion, gossip. So you've called procedural motion B? Yeah. So you have a minute to explain what you would like for that.
The amendment, which has been accepted by default because it's been accepted by Jade, submitted by Jade, actually removes a fairly useful piece of the proposal from it, and therefore I would like to actually vote for it in parts and vote for the amendment separately from the rest of the policy. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak? Stop. Sorry, I'm so confused. We've got like 6 people talking at once. What's happening?
It's a bad suggestion because that part has been removed already, so there is no part there to take the parts.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, we've
Back to the amendment and don't accept it.
right. We've misunderstood everything. Because the part has already been taken out because we've already passed the amendment, means that we can't take it as parts as the procedural motion. So instead, I'd advise that we do procedural motion G to challenge the chair's ruling, and then we can go back and do the amendment again with DG being chair to redo.
Or you could just accept that challenge and move back.
Oh, or I could just accept the challenge and move back if
We just propose the amendment.
we just propose the amendment again. Yeah, then we'd have to vote on the amendment whether to do it or not instead of Jade just being able to accept it. Oh yeah.
No, because if it's
No.
a challenge to the, but if you accept it all, you can just do it.
No,
If the meeting wants you to do this, you can just do it.
Okay. Okay, well I accept that ruling, which means I can keep doing it, I think. And go back. Yes, cool. Good, I'm comfy
So we're now
here.
going to go back to proposing the amendment.
Okay.
So Jade has to propose the amendment.
Okay, so this means, Jade, you need to come and propose your amendment. So we've got the new debating bylaw, which we're still kind of getting our heads around up here. So you've got 2 minutes to propose your amendment.
All right, thank you. So basically, it was Giles who thankfully pointed this out to me about this line. And I don't, as we were talking to David Galani as well about it, I don't think this line actually takes away anything. By removing it, it doesn't take away anything from the policy. Actually, everything that that line would achieve is covered in the rest of the resolves and also in the mandates, which is to mandate a formal procedure to come forwards out of this. So this isn't the end of the line. There is going to be another 6 months of work on this. So, yeah, so that line didn't really add anything, but actually there was a bit of ambiguity about how it could be interpreted, and it could be interpreted in a way that I didn't mean it. So I thought because it was actually covered within the rest of the policy, within the rest of the resolves and in the mandates, that it would just be easier for kind of clarity to just take that out completely. So that's why I decided to take it out. It doesn't really affect the policy actually barely at all. Everything we wanted to that line to do is covered within the rest of the policy. So I think taking it out doesn't have a detriment. It doesn't change the policy really. It just makes it clarity going forwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, if anyone would like to speak against this amendment, okay, Miwash, if you'd like to take the lectern, you also have up to 2 minutes.
First of all, I'd like to apologise for the chaos caused by this, especially to Henry. Right, if taking the line out doesn't actually change the spirit of the motion, as you believe, then I see no reason to take the line out, if it remains the same in meaning. In my belief, however, it does change the meaning of the policy because it does mean that a union officer could exert pressure to get another volunteer officer to do things the way they want. And I think that having that explicitly in the policy is a very good thing, which, as Jade rightly pointed out, won't detract from the policy, it will simply solidify it. Therefore, I believe that removing this line would cause detriment to the policy, and I would like to ask you to vote against it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We can now open this up to debate. If anyone would like to speak for the for the amendment, Maya? No. Sorry.
If it's procedural, come and see Guy.
Okay, if it's a question about a procedural motion, then come and see Guy. But if it's a question about the policy as a whole, then no. Sorry. Okay. Yes. Why have you got your hand up, David? Yep. Would you like to speak for the amendment? Yes. Okay. So David Mendoza-Wolfson is now going to speak that the amendment should be accepted. You have up to a minute.
Thank you. So this year, as many of you know, I'm the Vice President Education. Now, in my zone in particular, we have literally hundreds of voluntary officers. Now, depending on how one defines censorship, which I do think is incredibly important, an instruction from one level, one tier of that structure to the next could be defined as censorship. If, for instance, an academic president feels that what a course rep is saying isn't representative of the course, the academic president should have the ability to prevent the course rep from misrepresenting. Now, by not removing what's been recommended here, we're effectively stopping the representation structure from being able to manage. It creates an impossible situation that I, as Vice President Education, can in no way support. So please, 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 make sure this amendment happens. Delete this line, because otherwise I don't see how education can support this policy, and we really would like to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cool. Would anyone like to speak against the amendment? Okay. If you'd like to come to the lectern, you also have up to 1 minute. Can I go to summation afterwards? The amendment. Okay, whenever you're ready.
We've just had the proposer of the amendment state that taking this line out doesn't change anything, and now we've had an argument for and against the amendment that sort of says that actually it does change it, which I just think we should actually kind of think about that before we make any vote. We should keep an eye on the fact that this probably will change something, and I will disagree with David in that I don't think a representation system should have a system in place where one officer can tell another officer what to say. That's not how representation works. It works through the people deciding what to say. So I don't think we should take this line out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will now offer a summation. Oh, Alex? Okay, so would you like to speak for why you want to move the procedural motion? Can we have a microphone to Alex, please? Oh, race of the microphones. I like it.
I believe the debate on the amendment has got too much time in wording, and we should just move on to the vote and either accept it or not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If anyone would like to speak against the procedural motion? Jade, you don't want to go straight to the vote on your amendment? Okay, so we're now voting on whether to move to the vote. So if you'd like to raise your card, if you'd like to move straight to the vote. Yeah, just for clarity, this is voting whether you want to move straight to the vote on whether to accept the amendment or not. God, you're confused. Try being me. Okay, if we can have the tellers counting quickly, because this is a bit of a smattering and I'm not... This is too confusing for me to deal with. Yes, move straight to the vote on the amendment, not whether we're accepting the amendment. Okay. Okay, you can put your arms down now. Okay, and if you don't want to move straight to the vote on the amendment, if we can have counting again, please. But this is just whether we move to the vote, isn't it?
We're taking online votes on PMs.
Ooh, no, neither did I. That's really smart.
You might tell them, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Okay, if you're all ready, there was one vote in it, but we are going straight to the vote. Also, just discovered something really cool. We're actually taking votes online on procedural motions while people are watching at home. So hi. So yeah. So now we'll move straight to the vote on this amendment. So if you'd like to vote for the amendment, then please raise your cards. If we could have the tellers counting again, please. Okay, you can put your hands down. We should have heads down, thumbs up, shouldn't we? Okay. And against, if you don't want the amendment to be passed. Okay, put your arms down. Ooh, sorry, that was loud. The amendment is passed. Okay, so now we'll go back to debating the policy as a whole. So if anyone would like to speak against the policy as a whole with that amendment included, then would you like to raise your arm? No? No one wants to speak against the policy? Would anyone else like to speak for the policy? Okay, so no one now wants to speak against it either? Oh, hello, okay, you've got up to 3 minutes. We haven't done anything against it yet. Cool.
Obviously, censorship is a bad thing in the union. I think we can all agree on that. No one wants censorship. The idea behind this policy is great. My one issue with it is Resolves 5, which says any issues with this policy are dealt with by the union president, which I think makes the problem worse, really. If we are putting in a policy to stop the union being able to censor people, we shouldn't then give one person autocratic power over how censorship is handled. We shouldn't give one person autocratic power to say, actually, this censorship is fine. So while I think censorship should be something we work against, and we already have some systems in place to work against it, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, Shep, you get started.
Thank you. If you're unhappy about what's going on with that, of course, there's always the union's complaints procedure, which is democratically led, etc. Thank you.
Point of information.
Yeah.
We specifically put in that union mandates, which talks about developing a procedure, so that actually would then develop whether that would be straight to the union president or what have you. The union president is the one that normally deals with disputes anyway, as it already says in our constitution. So I think we did consider that, and we did put protections in the policy for that.
Yeah, and while those are fair points, I just believe that I don't think we should give the president that power in the meantime. I think if we want to do that, we should make a policy first and then pass that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, would anyone like to speak for the policy? Henry, you have up to 2 minutes.
Just in response to that, actually, if you read Union Mandates 1, it actually says that there's work to carry out to put a process in place to decide what should be censored and what should be not. So actually disputes with this rule are actually disputes with the process that allows censorship, which is exactly the same as having disputes with any of the rules or disputes with any of the articles, which falls to the decision of the union president anyway. So actually that line is in keeping with our current rules and articles.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak against the policy? No? Okay. Would anyone else like to speak for? No? Against? No? Would you like a minute summation?
First, I want to apologise. I didn't think this would be so much debate. We spent ages writing it, so I thought we'd covered everything, but obviously not. I think that, as I already said in my point of information, that it doesn't give the President more power than they already have. We specifically put a mandate in there to develop a procedure which is going to have student consultation, which is going to be passed at Union Council, which is for 6 months' time to make sure there is proper consultation on it. We specifically put that in there because we didn't want to give all the power to everyone. Censorship is a very censorship and a very difficult issue. And I think it does need a lot of work to develop a system that will make sure it doesn't happen. I think without this policy, we're basically saying we agree with censorship, which I think is really, really dangerous for Susu to have a stance saying it agrees with censorship. I just don't think that's what the students who are not in this room and who are not proxy voting, I don't think they would agree with that. And we're meant to be representing them. So that's that. Thank you, everyone. And sorry for taking up your time so much as well. Sorry.
Thank you. I'll just remind you that for future policies in the summation, you can't actually put any new information in. It's okay. So I didn't want to interrupt, but yeah, just to let you know for future reference. So now we will move to the vote on censorship in Susu, or preventing censorship in Susu. So if you would like to raise your cards to pass the policy. Okay, so that's passed in the room. Okay. Okay, and down. And if you don't want to pass the policy, okay. And checking the online vote, it's passed. The policy is passed. Okay, now we move on to the policy of reforming the EVAs. So if I could have a 3-minute proposal speech from Gabriella, please. Okay, whenever you're ready.
Hi everyone. First off, it's fair to say that as a students' union, we have hundreds of volunteers who are essential to the running of this union. All of them make fantastic contributions, and all of them deserve some form of recognition for their efforts. And over the last few years, there's been some controversy over the EVA Awards, and this year has been no exception. There have been problems this year, including the releasing of tickets before the shortlist was announced and the duplication of nominees into different categories. Further cause for concern is the fall in overall nominations from 436 in 2013 to 353 in 2014. This policy aims to end this controversy that has developed over the years by mandating a review into the EVAs to be done by the VP engagement next year. It guarantees a review of the criteria for the awards, which have caused confusion, the judging process in order to make it more transparent, and taking a look at the night itself to make it whatever students want it to be. It also looks into establishing awards where these do not currently exist, for example, the Society Awards. And it also allows for consultation to take place with the students and for a more concrete policy outlining the specifics to be taken to Union Council in the next academic year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like... Oh, wait. No amendments. Woo. Would anyone like to speak against this policy? No? Oh, yeah. Dave Mendoza-Wolfson, if you'd like to take to the lectern. You've got up to 3 minutes.
I shan't take 3 minutes. I will be as brief as I can. I think the main reason that I want to speak against this is actually for a reason that I've spoken with Gabriella about before, which is that I don't really think that we should make policies about making reviews. I think that there are other processes that we can go down into reviewing. I also know that Claire, obviously our current Vice President Engagement, is extremely keen to get student input and launch a review into the EVAs. For those reasons, I really don't think that having a policy that says we have to reform the EVAs that will expire by next year, when policies should obviously go on for longer than that, I just don't see that as being the necessary route to take. I don't think that the EVAs process is perfect, and Claire knows that, the other sabbaticals know that as well, but I know that Claire doesn't think it's perfect either. I do think that it is a fantastic night, and I think that everyone that went last week had a really great time, and we awarded some fantastic people for some fantastic things. I don't think that this policy is necessary. I don't think it's necessary now. I don't think it's necessary at all. I think that a review should happen, but there are other ways that can happen. For those reasons, I'm going to ask you to please vote against this policy. Cheers.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak for the motion? Oh, your hand went up first. Okay, you'll have up to 2 minutes.
Hi, everyone. I think part of the problem with this is that it caused more of a sort of public outcry, which is why it's very important that this is resolved and why we need to have a policy which ensures that officers are held to account and that this is enforced and dealt with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak against the policy? Oh, Claire, you have up to 2 minutes.
So I worked with Gabriella on this policy, but there's a very good reason for why I'm not a seconder on it, in that I believe that actually we should do more than just look at one event that we hold over our year on how we recognise our volunteers. And actually we should look at far more the other ways that we can recognise them, whether they're with external awards. So for example, the Mayor Awards over 2 times in the year, 100 hours to people that have given their time to institutions, and we don't do anything with a nomination process for that at the minute because we only just found out about it. And actually to look at our processes as a whole for how we look at our volunteers and the different types of volunteering. Should we count the number of hours that our volunteers do? For example, Loughborough do it really successfully and remove them like a kind of stash for how many hours you donate and that sort of thing, and actually reflecting on that it's not just volunteers in one area but volunteers across the union. So the reason that I will be voting against this policy is not because I disagree with it. In fact, I do agree with it, but I think it doesn't go far enough. And I know that part of work that I'll be putting into place and part of work that Ellie will be putting into place as my successor will be that, and it's not encapsulated in this policy. And I would be sad to see that my legacy would be a review of an event, of which the event itself was fine, it just was that I wasn't very transparent in my processes, of which I am profusely sorry, and I do apologise publicly, obviously to be in front of all of you, for. But I think that actually what it spurred us to do is to look more at what we can do to recognise our volunteers. So I will be voting against because I think we should do even more and be even better, and that, sadly, I'm very sorry, Gabriella, but this policy doesn't quite reach that point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak for the motion? Jade, you also have up to 2 minutes.
I just want to say before we start, the EVAs were very good on Friday. This isn't speaking against the EVAs themselves, but I think this policy doesn't actually... I don't think it's bad to have this kind of policy. David says we have other ways of making sure our officers do them. What? Like, I don't really know how I could make an officer do something without having it in a policy. I think that's unfortunately the case. I know we did do something with the policy review and its decisions, blah, blah, blah. But it's really confusing. Even I don't understand it, and I go to student council all the time. So I don't see how anyone else would. This policy, I don't...
So this is procedural motion sheet C to refer the question to another body or person. If you'd like to come to the front, then you've got a minute to pose the procedural motion. Oh. Does Jay get to finish her speech? Sorry, quickly consulting the rules. Okay, yeah, we'll let Jade finish. Okay. Sorry for the interruption.
No, it's fine. I don't really have anything more to say, actually. I think David's amendment might be David's procedural motion might be quite good, so I don't really need to finish my speech, actually. I think that's for you, sir.
Okay. Okay, just to point out to the room that normally we wouldn't expect procedural motions to be during a speech unless it was to give the current speaker an extension. Just for future reference.
In my defence, I asked Marcus and he said it was okay.
Okay, so you have a minute to propose your procedural motion.
So the reason I'm moving well, first I'll say who I think it should be referred to. Jade's right, I don't actually know how many routes there are to take things down to make sure things get done, but I do know that procedural motion C on a motion is one. Now what I want to do is make sure to refer this question to the position of Vice President Engagement, which means that Claire, and then if something's not resolved by the 1st July, which I'm sure it won't be, not with adequate student consultation anyway, that's then carried forward by Ellie in consultation with other students. A review needs to be done. Let's mandate that it's done. But let's do that through a process that I think makes more sense, that won't last in a lasting policy, that will make sure there is lasting change to the EVAs. So please vote for this question to be taken to the position of Vice President Engagement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak against the procedural motion? No? Okay. Now I propose that we move to the vote on the procedural motion. So if you would like to raise your cards, if you would like this to be part of the VP engagement. Is that clear enough? Okay, and down. And if you would not like this to be part of the VP engagement, please raise your cards. Okay, the procedural motion is passed and it will be passed to the VP engagement. I think so, because the next one's going to take ages. Okay, so as we've got a big policy coming up, but our food is here, I propose that we have a quick break and have some food before we move on to the sabbatical term limits policy. Oh, you joking, procedural motion? We're not voting on whether to have a break. How long are we giving them?
20 minutes? 15, 20 minutes?
Yep. Okay, I'll give you between 15 and 20 minutes just to work out what's going on. Yeah. Hey, Jackie.
What have we achieved over this year? Well, it's been a great year at Susu.
We're here to give you a quick snapshot
of some of the things we've been up to recently.
Across 8 key areas of our work.
We exist to make a difference to the lives of students.
And what follows is a few highlights of some of the things that we wanted to share.
We have improved our students' education by amplifying student voice and working alongside the university to embed good ideas.
The library is now open 24 hours a day during the summer exam period. With an addition of 142 new seats and 154 new charging pods, students have the facilities they need.
International students studying from 2014 to 15 will benefit from stabilised rather than increased fees, bringing certainty to the cost of their degree.
We've helped students to be active by making sport more accessible and helping to build team spirit and performance.
This year, Team Southampton beat the University of Portsmouth 204-64 in our annual varsity competition, giving all students a sense of pride in their sporting achievements.
The Taekwondo Club have become national student champions for the 5th consecutive year, making us the most successful university Taekwondo club in the UK ever.
We've made a difference to the rest of the world by creating a positive impact on our local, national and international communities.
Our Community Action and Marine Conservation Society removed litter from 1.4 kilometres of beach.
We raised over £91,000 for charity in the year 2012 to 13 and have helped benefit over 60 different organisations.
Our decisions are made by students because we provide lots of ways for you to shape what we do.
More women were elected into the sabbatical team for 2014 to 2015 than ever before, highlighting real progress towards gender equality.
This year's AGM had a higher attendance due to our online voting system, which allows students to have their say via a virtual presence.
We fostered creativity by creating a place where media and arts are promoted, produced and shared.
Union Films have shown 87 films at less than half the cost of other cinemas, saving students over £70,000 in cinema tickets.
Susu TV and Surge Radio have won a whopping 9 national awards.
We've made student life even better by providing more support and taking action to improve the important things.
1,475 students accessed independent, confidential support from the Susu Advice Centre, increasing our service by 16% on last year.
The University and Susu have helped put £2.2 million worth of bursaries into student pockets this year.
We've made the future more sustainable by working to bring social, economic and environmental benefits to students.
Our BEES, Business Ethics and Environmental Student Scheme, was awarded £175,000 worth of funding, enabling students and businesses to work in partnership, championing sustainability throughout the city. We've also adopted the ethical priorities of our students in working with businesses.
Our swap shop events have exchanged over 300 pieces of clothing, saving students money and reducing landfill.
We've helped people feel like they belong by developing and supporting our student communities.
96% of pre-sessional students said that Susu helped them integrate into life in the UK, and 99% said that it helped them to socialise.
£750,000 was invested into Winchester facilities in partnership with the university, enabling us to provide a social space for more students.
Okay, cool. I hope you all enjoyed your little video and the lovely food that we provided for you. So, restarting the meeting, I'm just going to point out that we've got some students live blogging who are using the plugs at the front. So there are some cables here, so please don't trip over them. Please. If you're coming to the front to speak, please don't trip over. Okay, during the break, I've had it raised to me that a student would like to move the emergency policy of improved leadership and representation up the order. I don't agree with this, so we have procedural motion G called by Miwash. So I'm now stepping down because my ruling has been challenged. So I'm going to hand over to David Galani. If you'd like to help me off the stage as well.
Okay, so there is 1 minute to speak for this procedural motion. So, Militia, if you'd like to come up to the stage and present it. Before you speak, can you clarify where you would like to move your procedural motion to in the order of debate?
Ideally for immediate discussion, or maybe after the upcoming item, which was the sabbatical terms, one of the two. Let's say before. Hi, the reason I'm calling for this is because I haven't thought in advance. I realised that I have a meeting that clashes with this AGM. I wanted to speak on one of the amendments for that policy, and I wanted to be here to vote on it, and apparently this is the only way to do it within the rules. Therefore, please vote for it. Thank you, and sorry.
Thank you very much, Milosh. Would anybody like to speak against this emergency motion? Katie, yes, I'll give you a minute to then speak against that, seeing as you were the chair.
Hi guys. Okay, this policy was submitted late, and it was against my decision that I didn't want it to be put on the agenda. But our lovely president interpreted the rules in a different way than I did. So I don't believe that where it is in the agenda fits in with the fact that it passed. It was submitted after the deadline, and it wasn't voted for by students. So the upcoming policies were voted on by students. So I don't think it should be put above things that you guys have decided you want to talk about. I think it's up to you to decide how important you think it is and whether you think it should be put up there, but it isn't my belief that it should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. You still vote on that? No? Yeah. So we'll now, I won't go to any further rounds of debate for and against that emergency motion, so we'll now go to a vote. So if you would like to vote for this emergency motion, which would therefore move, if you'd like to vote for this procedural motion, which would therefore move up the motion of improving leadership and representation to the next item on the agenda, please vote for. If you wish to stay in its original place, vote against. So if you'd like to vote for, please raise your voting cards now. I think we'll count that one. Okay, so keep your cards, if you are voting, high in the air, and it helps if you don't change your mind during this process, so if the tellers could count. Okay, you can now lower your hands and the cards upon them. Okay, and now please raise your hand if you'd like to vote against the procedural motion. Okay, keep your hands up. Okay, you can now lower your hands. Thank you. Thank you. Just going to count that up. So that's fallen. Yeah. So that procedural motion has fallen. So we will keep the original agenda timeframe. So now that dispute has been passed, I will pass back over to Katie to take up the chair.
Cool. Okay, I think the lesson that can be learned is don't wear heels when you've got to be on a stage. Okay, so the next policy that we've got is the sabbatical term limits policy. So if I can invite the proposer up for a 3-minute speech.
Very honest president, just put that back. Not supposed to be voted.
Whenever you're ready, Gabriella.
Cool. Hi everybody. Currently sabbaticals are allowed to run for 2 years. Across the country, incumbent candidates have a 4-to-1 chance of winning the second time. In Southampton, over the past few years, the number of rerunners has increased, and there is no evidence of them ever having lost at Southampton. The fact that so many incumbents are winning suggests that they have a significant advantage over other candidates. Due to their role and the fact they aim for a high level of officer awareness, They achieve a high level of publicity due to the virtue of their role. It's sabbaticals' faces on the walls in the concourse, their pictures on the front page of the website, their names on all the freshers material, them in the induction talks, and they also have all of Susu's communication channels to broadcast their achievements. Additionally, their full-time role gives them insight into the operations of Susu that a student cannot possibly compete with. This further puts them at a significant advantage over other candidates. The incumbency advantage is a well-known concept within political science, and given that we are a Russell Group research-led university, I'm sure you understand the importance of research. Furthermore, there is the scare effect caused by sabbaticals rerunning. This is that other people who wish to run for the role are put off. Other universities across the country, such as Newcastle and Sheffield, the UK's most successful students' unions, according to the NSS, only allow sabbaticals to run for 1 year. Clearly, these advantages have been acknowledged by these students' unions, and the benefits of having one-year term limits have been recognised. Further difficulties of rerunners is that 2 years gives the sabbaticals the opportunity to defer some of their aims and work to their second year, in the knowledge that it is highly unlikely that they would lose. This is not the best deal for students, as sabbaticals should have the drive to get everything they want done in the first year, rather than the second, slowing down progress of the union. Sabbatical roles are a year for a reason. It drives a high impetus for change. Furthermore, arguing that giving sabbaticals 2 years is a good thing, as it means they complete work they haven't already finished, is flawed, as a good sabbatical is one that can effectively hand over projects that they have not completed in their year. Additionally, we have over 100 core staff who stay here on average 6.5 years, giving a consistent direction for the Students' Union and allowing staff to build up strong relationships within the external community and the university, which even a sabbatical which runs for 2 years cannot achieve. During campaigning week, the sabbaticals have the additional advantage of taking a week off work compared to non-rerunning sabbaticals. Also, these individuals do not have the same academic pressures that full-time students have, who are offering their final year, giving them an advantage in this respect. Sabbaticals are elected on a democratic basis. The principles of democracy decree that elections should be free and fair. How can the elections be free and fair when so many...
Okay, procedure motion. How long an extension would you like to give? Okay, we'll now vote. Would anyone like to speak against the procedure motion? Okay, then we will vote on the procedure motion to give the current speaker 1 minute. So if you'd like to raise your cards if you do want to. Okay, cool, and down. And if you don't want to give her extension, okay, procedure motion is passed. Gabriella, you've got an extra minute.
Thank you. How can the elections be free and fair when so many candidates are not given the same level of publicity as rerunners who are sabbatical officers? Many people argue that allowing sabbaticals to run... Sorry.
How can an election be free if you're limiting how long people can...
That's not a point of information, that's a question.
That's not a point of information, that's a question.
Okay.
It's up to you whether to accept it.
Denied. Many people argue that allowing sabbaticals to run for 2 years allows them to bring further experience to the role. But if roles are allocated on this basis, we would be a meritocracy rather than the true democracy that we are, and the roles will be decided on by interviews rather than the democratic vote. Some also may argue that this is relevant to student leaders. However, I've specifically left them out of the policy because we're having a student leader review next year, so this policy shouldn't preempt that, as we don't know what these roles are going to be.
Sorry, you're out of time. Okay. Would anyone like to speak against the procedural motion to give the current speaker an extension? Josh? Oh, sorry, Mine, would you like to speak for the procedural motion first? Someone would like to speak against it. And then we'll have Josh speak against the procedural motion. Okay, you have up to a minute.
I really don't think Gabriella has much more to say. It's not going to hurt just to hear what she has to say about something that's so important and can change so much. Just give her a minute. It's not going to take that much more time. It's just one more paragraph. It's only a minute, so please vote for this.
Okay, and Josh, if you'd like to speak against the procedural motion?
If you've ever been to Union Council or you've been to things like this before, you know you're given 3 minutes to propose your speech. speech should be limited to 3 minutes. You should write it within 3 minutes. We've already been given a minute extension. This meeting is going on long enough already. And I don't think you should be given an extension. You know you had 3 minutes to speak. Speak in 3 minutes.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak for or against the procedural motion? Then we'll move to a vote. Please raise your cards if you would like to give the current speaker an extension of 1 minute. I think that's clear. Okay, and down. And if you don't want to give the current speaker an extension of 1 minute? Yep. Okay, the procedural motion is passed. You may have another minute to speak.
I'd add that for the student leader review and this policy, there is, of course, the potential to look at this next year, next year's AGM, once this review is complete. And I'd like to end by saying, in politics, if there is one assertion upon which scholars and pundits agree, is that incumbent politicians have inconsiderable election advantages. Thank you.
Okay, we now have an amendment which has been proposed by Marcus Burton. So you have 2 minutes to do your amendment? Yep.
Wonderful.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Katie. Right, this amendment, just to be absolutely clear, I don't really think it's appropriate to take a position in this amendment for or against it because for my own personal reasons, of which you're probably all aware. So this amendment is on 2 bases. One is to set out the debate about it being not about the people, but about the principles on which we as a union agree or don't agree. And that's to say, essentially take the people out of it by saying that we have 3, Becky, Ollie and DMW, SABs presently elected second consecutive term of office, and they are allowed. It's more for the avoidance of doubt, because obviously there is a whole procedure tied up in the articles about recall, but just to make it absolutely clear, it's not about the people, it's about the principles. And then thereafter, Resolves 3 and Mandates 1 are to ensure that we then update the rules, because this policy on its own cannot achieve what it wants to achieve. It has to go into the rules, it has to go into our governing documents to make it absolutely watertight. So this decision that we make here isn't in vain. So people, not principles, and make sure the decision that you make, if you do choose to implement it, is implemented. So please vote for this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak against the amendment? No hands? Okay, would anyone else like to speak for the amendment? And because I've offered it one way, would anyone like to speak against? Okay, would you like a summation? Okay, cool, no summation, which means we'll move to a vote on this amendment. So if you'd like to raise your card, if you would like to accept this amendment. Clear? Okay, and down. And if you don't want to approve the amendment, please raise your cards. Okay, the amendment is passed. Whoop. Okay, now back to debating the policy with this amendment included. Would anyone like to speak against the policy as a whole? No one? I was expecting so much more debate on this. Oh, Shep, you've got your hand up. Okay, you have up to 3 minutes to speak. Why don't you get up here? Really should have timed everyone walking.
This is essentially, we already have laws in place, like national laws in place that limit sabbatical officers. They're allowed to only run for 2 years. So this seems like slightly an unnecessary thing. It does limit it a little bit more, but it's not like our sabbaticals have free reign at the moment. They are limited to 2 years, and I think that's fair. A couple of points that were brought up during the speaking for it. We mentioned that there are a couple of student unions that already do this. You may have heard the term correlation does not imply causation. I don't think it's fair to say that just because they're progressive student unions and they also limit sabbaticals, then that's definitely the reason. I'm sure there are loads of reasons that the NSS think they're a good union. I just think that obviously rerunning does give you a little bit of insight into what's going on, but we are a transparent union, so it is completely possible for anyone who is coming into this job to know what the job entails, to know what projects are going on, to know how people are doing things, how things are going on. All the current sabbaticals will always talk to you, all the current officers will always talk to you about the position during the elections. We have all that in process at the moment, so I don't think anyone is particularly unfairly advantaged by this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak for this policy? Jade, you have up to 2 minutes.
So just some rebuttal on what Shep said. In terms of this being a national thing, it's kind of only become a problem in the last few years. We all know how slow government are, so they probably haven't even considered looking at it again. It's probably not really their priority, given kind of the crisis in the country at the moment. I'm actually doing my dissertation on this topic. Yeah, I know it's sad, but you know, something I find very interesting. And so I did a literature review on it, and I'm actually going to read some quotes from my literature review. Gabriella already gave one earlier, which I thought was very interesting. One study found that rerunners are 15 more times likely to win than non-rerunners. Another study into the UK found that without this incumbency advantage, we would actually have a majority Conservative government. You might not think that's a good thing, you know, I personally don't, but that's how much it would change it. We would have a majority Conservative government. Yes, that's what the study found, David. He's just looking at me like in great disbelief, but as Gabriella pointed out earlier, we are a Russell Group research-led university. We all understand how important research is and the relevance of research. The high incumbency advantage has often meant that it is extremely difficult to remove a sitting legislator. We have very little, I'm not saying we have very little accountability here, but often the general voters don't know whether a sabbatical has done a good job or not because of the way we do our accountability here. So if a sabbatical has done a bad job, for example, the general voters probably wouldn't even know that. There's been research that's been done into all kinds of voting systems, when people are part of parties, when people aren't part of parties, and every one of them has found this incumbency advantage exists. In the current literature, there is no argument of whether this exists or not. I decided to do my dissertation on it to see if it would be relevant to student unions. My initial research has found that it is. I don't think there is a dispute about whether in politics, whether it's problem or not. I'm not saying that rerunning sabbaticals are bad. I'm just saying that they have a huge advantage. Thank you. I don't need an extension, but thank you.
Okay, would anyone like to speak against the policy? Oh, so many hands. Shruti, I saw your hand first. You have up to 2 minutes.
Okay, I'd just like to say, I don't think that you can honestly say that national politics has a strong correlation to union politics. A lot of the people who do rerun do not get, at the time of elections, more publicity because there are rules against that. And if you're going to say that SABs can't rerun for their position because they've got power, then student leaders, on the same note, have their name out. So, for example, if a faculty officer ran for VP Education, their name's already out there, they've already done a lot, so you're saying they can't use their experience. And there isn't really a difference. And on the point of a lot of the voters don't know whether a SAB's done a good job or not, all the minutes are public. Union Council minutes, you can submit a question, they're all up there, and if they bother to go and look, they would be able to find them. So I think that their first role is whether they've done it. It's an advantage if they've done a good job, but not necessarily if they've done a bad job, and that is transparent because that's why we have everything online.
Thank you. Okay, would anyone else like to speak for the policy? Okay, if you'd like to take the floor, we've got 2 minutes. Once you're ready. Oh, are you doing your own timer so you don't overrun? Oh, thank you.
Sorry. Okay, I'd just like to rebut a bit what was said before. I would just point out that the motion very specifically does talk about student leaders, say that's going to be part of a larger review. Student leaders aren't necessarily comparable. They are, of course, students. They have to do their degree. They don't get their names out to the same extent. We don't know yet if the incumbency effect would be as big an advantage there as it is here. You say that people can find out what people are doing. They can do that. Well, let's be honest. The majority of people don't. We have to be realistic and see what is the actual effects of the reality of our situation. And I would just like to point out that for people going into their third year, they will have never known a brand new union president. Every union president so far either re-ran as president before or had been a VP before. So clearly there's a demonstrating of a clear recent evidence of a strong incumbency advantage. So it seems to me I would just like to say one other point. The thing about university compared to national politics is we're only here for a finite amount of time. you only have a limited window of opportunity where you might want to run for a position, maybe a sabbatical position, then that's it, it's finished. We should surely want to maximise the ability for as many people as possible to have that opportunity and to contribute something to the union, which we don't if people can rerun for a position and pretty much guarantee that they're going to win, which from recent experience suggests is going to be the case, as well as from the research pointed out by Gabriella and Jade. So that's all I really want to say. I just want to say, calling everyone to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought you were going to take more time. I've now got a mouthful of scone. Scone, sorry. Are we really going to have that argument in the middle of the AGM?
No, we won't. We'll leave you to it.
Okay, would anyone now like to speak against this motion? Oh, so many hands. Oh, brilliant, okay. Josh, you have up to 2 minutes. Thank you for that. I've only got so many eyes, you see.
I'm an example of somebody who lost to a rerunning sabbatical, and I am against this policy. We have a massive potential to lose the best person for the job if we are to limit the amount of time that a sabbatical can spend in office. If this policy was in before, we probably wouldn't have had one of the best union presidents this union has seen in David Galani. And this is an issue that we could potentially face in the future if this policy is to come into effect. This policy also needs to extend to student leaders straight away. I know we're going to have a student review, that doesn't make a difference. As a student leader in a specific area, especially as a faculty officer, you get to know your faculty very well and your faculty know who you are. If you rerun, likelihood is they're going to vote for you because they know you, especially if you've done a good job. We also actually need to start looking at how people are voting. We don't necessarily go out and ask the people who have voted how they voted. We don't ask them if they vote because they know that person's been in the office before, or they literally vote because that person is at the top of the list. Before we can effectively make a decision on whether we should limit our sabbatical term limits, we need to find out how our electorate are voting first, then make that decision. Have this discussion next year. We've done a large amount of research into how the students at our university are voting. Let's not potentially lose the best people for the job. Let's not make a decision without having the results of why people are voting for the sabbaticals in our union. Please vote against this policy.
Thank you. Now, would anyone like to speak for the policy? Marion, your hand was up first.
Who else did you say?
Henry.
Hello, I'd like to first say that yes, you may lose the best person. We were quite fortunate to have someone like David Galani, but you also might lose the best person if you do have rerunners. So that's also a very valid point that I think you should keep in mind. We might have lost you, I mean, you know. Okay, so I think we should also keep in mind that in Union Council we did have this discussion, and the majority said, you know what, we should just ignore this is ridiculous. And then it actually came up in these policies, and so many people voted for it, which I think shows how unrepresentative Union Council is. That, I think, in itself is a... Can I finish this, please, Decline? This in itself is a reason why we should vote for this policy.
For information, they weren't voting because they agree with it, they were voting because they wanted it to be discussed.
They want it to be discussed. Okay. Okay, that's fair enough. But I think from what I gathered, the sort of atmosphere was that the majority did not agree with this. The final thing I want to say is that you don't have student leaders on the main wall. You don't have student leaders on the electronic screens. Student leaders don't have blogs. People don't really know who they are, like they know the sabbaticals. Can I just finish this, please? Like they don't know them like they know the sabbaticals. I'm a first year, and I didn't know who any of the student leaders were. I didn't know who the sabbaticals were. They're on the website. Of course I know who they are. They're in the freshers events, but student leaders aren't. So that point about having student leaders to have term limits is sort of irrelevant.
Claire's done a lot of work this year, and actually student leaders' publicity is being increased. They now have blogs and access to fix on the website.
Information, they don't currently have blogs.
But they will do.
They will do, but right now they don't. That's the point. And are the majority of people really going to be reading student leader blogs? No, it's going to be sabbatical blogs. Yeah, trustees also don't have blogs. What's that?
Move.
No, okay, yeah, I've finished. Anyway, thank you. Oh, please vote for this. Thank you.
Okay. Dave Guns, would you like to have a minute to speak about why you want to move straight to the vote?
He needs a microphone.
Can we get a microphone to David Guns, please? Bit of procedural motion.
I think we should do this.
You think we should do the procedural motion? Okay. Would anyone like to speak against the procedural motion? David Mendoza-Wolfson? Okay, you have up to a minute to speak.
I think I can be pretty quick here. It would seem fairly obtuse to move to a vote on a topic that will have such an impact on the future of the union when there are clearly more people who want to discuss the topic. One thing that I would recommend could be procedure motion C, which would be moving this, say, to a referendum. I absolutely don't think that we should move to a vote now when there are people who still want to discuss it, and also before there has been another against speech, because otherwise, obviously, it's gone for, against, vote. That would be wrong. Vote against this. Let's have more speeches. Hopefully someone will procedure motion C or something like that. But let's talk this through. Let's just not make a decision. Cheers.
Thank you. Now we will move to the vote on whether to move to the vote. So if you could raise your card if you would like to move to the vote, please. Okay, can we have tellers, please? Because I can't see everyone from here. And it's really split, and this is... Raise your cards high if you're over on that side.
Had you already captured them? Had you already got them? Had you missed them? There was another one after I went over,
Okay. Okay, and if you'd now like to raise your cards nice and high if you don't want to move straight to the vote. Oh. Right, we started counting now. We just about finished, didn't we?
Yeah, count the fours, count the against.
Yeah.
You don't always know it's clear till you know it's clear, do you?
Okay, you can put your arms down now. Bless you. Okay, no? Okay, the procedural motion has fallen, so we will carry on with the debate. Oh, David, procedural motion? To refer the question to another body or person. Okay, if you'd like to come to the front and give a minute on why you think it should be referred to another body or person.
It's not always that myself. Sorry?
Do you know which body you'd like to refer?
I think we should have a referendum on this, actually. Do you know,
okay,
this, like...
You come here just a sec.
Yeah.
We're getting a bit...
Okay, so it should be called to council in order to call for a move to a referendum on, oh, not move to, like, call for a referendum, that's the one. Sorry. So basically, this is the kind of debate we should be having a referendum over, rather than say the card charges. I mean, I know that's got that has also an implication on the union, but like this has. I mean, we've got 3 candidates this time who have rerun, and I mean, I'm not decided personally on on whether we should or shouldn't. But this is the kind of thing we should be having a much longer debate over rather than deciding now because of the implications that it has for the union as a whole. Okay?
Okay, would anyone like to speak against the procedural motion? Mine, I saw your hand first again. Pardon, Jade, I can't hear you. Okay, yeah, sure. Jade, you have up to a minute. Up to a minute.
Up to a minute. So people have already voted it online to be discussed at the AGM. The reason why we took it to the AGM instead of council was because at the AGM any student can vote in it. What I worry about taking it to the referendum is a lot of us saw the NUS referendum and how horrible that got. And that was because it was a very political issue. This is another very political issue. And I wouldn't want our union to go back to that stage. And I just feel that that wouldn't allow the proper debate to come out. It would get very personal and things like that if it was over an extended period. We've seen referendums get very difficult before. The thing with the debit card charges, I don't think it's so political. This is a very political decision, so that's why I'd be cautious about taking it to a referendum.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
There's a procedure for doing that, and it isn't through procedural.
Okay, there's a procedure for doing that, and that isn't through a procedural motion. It has to be a substantive motion to call a referendum. Whereas if it goes to Union Council, then it can happen from there. Okay, thank you. Right, I've lost where I am now. Sorry. Voting. Okay, if you would like this to be referred to another body, then please raise your card now. So if you want it to be not to be voted on today and to go elsewhere, then please raise your card. Okay, can I have tellers, please? Because we've got a split room again. Okay, keep your arms nice and high. Okay, nice and high. Okay, and down. Okay, and if you don't want this policy to go to another body, please raise your cards. You can abstain.
To put the hands up again and count them again.
Okay, guys. Okay, we're so close, we're going to recount on this. Okay, so if you could make sure you keep your cards nice and high in the air and keep them up until I ask you to put them down, that'd be brilliant. Okay, so if you want this to be referred elsewhere, then please raise your card now.
Right, count, please.
Count.
Okay.
This will be referred to Union Council to then take to a referendum. So if you want it to be referred to Union Council to then be taken to a referendum, please keep your card nice and high in the air so there can be no issues over whether we think you're counted or not. Okay, keep them nice and high.
Ollie's got his hand up behind the pillar.
Have you seen Ollie behind the pillar?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. And now if you don't want this to be referred elsewhere, please raise your cards nice and high. Are you happy with the count?
I think there were 5. I think you missed one on your yeses. Yeah, count now. high in the air.
High in the air, please, guys. High in the air.
I don't know where you're counting to. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16. Finished counting.
Okay, now we've finished counting, put your cards down. Sorry, it was all getting a bit confusing up here.
People moving in and out.
Yeah, people moving in and out of the room during a vote doesn't particularly help when we're trying to count, and changing your minds also doesn't particularly help when we're this close. Whoa. Okay.
So we carry on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay then, the procedural motion has fallen with 15 for and 24 against. Procedural motion C, to refer the question to another body or person. We've just...
Which body?
It was procedural motion to hit to council to do a referendum on. That's why I voted against, because it doesn't work as a referendum.
You can explain this when you get it. Okay, so where would you like to pass this on to?
On to Union Council to do research onto it before calling. Yes, well, let me speak. You can't boo me. Okay, so...
No, sorry, Jamie, that's effectively the same motion because it's passing it to the same place.
Okay, I'll refer it to the Union President and Democracy Zone. To the Democracy Zone, please. Okay,
Okay, so you have up to a minute. Sorry,
that's fine.
Let me get myself... Yeah, go.
Okay, I believe that this emotion, you've gone on it without fact, you've gone on it complete theory. If it does work and you've gone to research and finding out how the students vote rather than running and saying this is the general population's vote, we need hard evidence and finding out how students vote. And once we've got that evidence, if it's right in your way, then the motion should be passed. So we need a lot more evidence on it than taking it to a referendum without having evidence.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if anyone would like to speak against this procedural motion. Okay, Gabrielle, your hand went up first, so, okay, you get a minute to speak, Henry.
I firmly believe you're not going to find stronger information about why the electorate vote and about the rerunner advantage by doing some kind of pathetic survey in the next term. It's just not going to work. You're not going to find out the important information. No, thank you. You're not going to find the important information that you need to find about the rerunner advantage. We've got clear facts about the rerunner advantage. Let's continue the debate here. We've had the debate online. We're debating it now. Don't refer this to some other pointless body that's not going to do anything with it. Debate this issue now. Don't just refer it to someone else. We're here to make this decision. Let's not fail students and just defer it somewhere else, okay? Let's not be a faceless body that does nothing. Let's make a decision, let's have a go, and let's see what happens. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to vote on this procedural motion. So if you could please raise your card if you would like it to be passed to Democracy Zone Committee for further research.
I'm going to take tellers or are we going to take a look?
Can we do tellers again? They're already counting. That's fine. It's just how the room's split. You've got... Okay, keep your cards nice and high in the air. Brilliant. Okay, have the tellers. Okay, can the people in this little block here please raise your cards if you want the procedural motion to pass? Because I've been told you keep flickering, which isn't making counting very helpful. To take it to Democracy Zone Committee. Okay. Okay, you can lower your cards. Okay, We'll give the tellers a second to get back to their spots. Okay, and now if you do not want it to be passed to Democracy Zone Committee, please raise your cards. And please keep them high in the air and don't flicker and change your mind. If you're not sure, then abstain.
She's got someone who's voted on both sides.
Who? Okay.
Thank you, Tony. Passes by 2.
Okay. Oh, sorry guys, I forgot to tell you to put your arms down, didn't I? Okay, the procedural motion to take it to the Democracy Zone Committee has passed by 2 votes. Okay, brilliant. Oh God, that was a thing.
What are we doing now?
Yep. Okay, the next policy that we have is, sorry if I could be able to speak without being spoken over, that'd be brilliant. The next policy we have is improving trans inclusion. Tom Gleeson would like to have 3 minutes to propose this.
Ready?
Yep, whenever.
Yep. Hello. Hopefully this one should be a little bit less controversial. So there's kind of 3 main aspects to this policy. The first one's really simple, just getting a lot of information about there to our elected officers and other appropriate groups, just about how to improve inclusion for trans people. We'd actually done a survey this year just to try and, I know they're not always pointless, but to try and get some feedback from our trans students about how we can improve university life for them. And the overwhelming response was that their experience with Susu facilities such as toilets and changing rooms were not adequate. And I don't think that we as a union should be allowing that to perpetuate. And so in respect to that, the change that I want to make is to put sanitary bins in the men's toilets for men who menstruate, and also to lobby the university so that their new builds will include this change as well, and also that new university buildings will have at least 1 set of gender-neutral toilets. So we don't want to actually make all toilets gender-neutral because there are groups that would obviously prefer gender-segregated toilets, but it's just to give people the option so that things are accessible on campus. It's nice and easy. And the last one is just to make sure that we're only asking people their gender on forms and things like that when it's absolutely necessary, and that we also have adequate options in place for that so that people don't have to define themselves as male or female, because some people don't really identify as either, or both. There's kind of subtleties in it. And that's about it, really. So hopefully, vote for my policy. Thanks.
Okay, would anyone like to speak? Oh, procedural motion. Okay, if you'd like to come to the front and discuss the procedural motion so we could work out what we're doing.
I would like to propose...
If you could come to the stage, if you could come talk to us so we know what you're doing before you then...
Propose procedural motion B, take proposed
Yep.
on the specific parts, namely Union Resolves 3 to include sanitary bins in existing male toilets in Susu building.
Wait, what?
Union Resolves 3.
Union Resolves 3. You want to remove it? A separate part? Okay.
They agreed to split it and then vote on that clause and then the whole.
Okay, thank you. Give us a sec. Right, so what do we do?
So someone speaks against splitting the motion up, and then if they agree to split it up, we'll then debate that clause before we debate the whole. It's effectively a delete amendment.
Okay, cool. Right, Henry, you've got a minute to speak for your procedural motion. So just to explain, this is to remove...
It's not to remove.
This is to take in parts the Union Resolves 3, to separate that out.
So I agree with the spirit of the policy and I agree with the majority of the policy. What I don't feel has been fully understood is the true cost and the implication of putting sanitary bins in what implies is all of the male toilets in the student union building. If you look at it in the reality, it's probably around 15 or 20 cubicles male cubicles in the student union building. That's 20 of those sanitary bins, which are actually very expensive to run. I don't think there's been much work to understand the full implication of that cost or the study of what actually the real demand for what that actually is. Yes, we should have gender-neutral toilets. Yes, making some of them gender-neutral is appropriate, and I support that, and I would vote for that. What I don't feel that we should vote for is making every toilet in this union building have to have a sanitary bin, because the cost of that is just taking away from money that could go well to student groups. Thank you.
If someone would like to speak against the procedural motion? Oh, so many hands. Okay, I've got Galani, Shep and Claire and Emma. Okay, as Emma hasn't spoken yet.
Yes, so you're looking for a speech against splitting it up.
Okay, so Emma, this is a speech against taking this part separately. This isn't a speech on the policy or the part itself. Okay, you have up to
I
a
really
minute.
didn't think you'd pick it, but if what I think I'm saying is what I'm meant to be saying about the sanitary bins, I don't think we need to put a cost on anything like that. I think we have more than enough money when we're talking about the convenience of literally one of the basic things that someone has to do when they menstruate. People here may not understand it. It is a bitch, it is awful to have sanitary bins, to have something that is literally of the base care. If we're going to start putting pennies on it, like, we can afford it, it's fine, it's going to be fine, they'll find the money somewhere, that's their job, not ours. Ours is to vote, so vote for it, because it needs to happen for trans students everywhere. Woohoo!
Okay. Yes, okay. Right, just to explain what's going on. Now we're moving to the vote on the procedural motion to take Resolves 3 as a separate part. So if you vote to take it as a separate part, we then debate that one sentence and whether that should stay in or not. If you decide not to take it as a part, that means we'll move back to debating the policy as a whole. Just so you're all clear on what's going on. Everyone clear? Brilliant. Okay, so if you would like this to be taken in parts, then please raise your cards now. Okay, and down. And if you don't want this to be taken in parts, please raise your cards now. Okay, this isn't going to be taken in parts. Right. So, where were we? No idea. Sorry. Right, right. Would anyone like to speak against this policy? Okay, you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Just as Henry said, I think I very much support the what the policy is trying to achieve. I think that's great. There's clearly a problem that's been identified here that clearly needs to be sorted out. I think, though, in addition to what Henry said, though, I do know that there are some people who just simply wouldn't be comfortable with having sanitary bins in the men's loo. I mean, that's not my own. It's not my own position, but I know that for some people that is the case. I think for now that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, God. Right.
Take all of it. You haven't actually asked for anything yet.
No, I haven't actually asked for anything yet, so you can all put your hands down. Huh? Okay, all your hands down? Okay, you take that side, I'll take that side. See who goes up first. Okay, who would like to speak for the policy? Right, Claire was my fastest.
Speech was mine.
We'll go with Claire.
Ideally.
I've got a fresh one who'd like to speak first. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Ideally, you should go for non-SABs. That's right.
Okay, you have up to 2 minutes to speak for the
For
policy.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Have a little bloody compassion, will you? These people have had to suffer enough in like the history. Who cares? It's a few pennies here and there. Just have a little compassion, man. These people have to suffer all the time because of the society we live in. Just pass the vote, man. It's stupid.
Okay. Okay. Could we quickly get your name for the minutes? Thought so. Okay. Would anyone like to speak against this policy? Okay. Would anyone like to speak for this policy? Oh, Jenny, your hand went up first. You will also have up to 2 minutes. And then if no one else wants to speak against, we will then move to summation and then vote. Because there's no point in just having a continuing one-sided debate.
I think the debate around the sanitary bins is just ridiculous because at the end of the day, they are only bins that you're putting in a cubicle. And I'm sure that the money can be found wherever, because at the end of the day, we're also choosing between discriminating people or spending money. And I don't think there is much of a choice in that.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak against the policy? Okay, then I will offer a summation up to 1 minute long.
I'd just like to start by thanking you for shooting down the procedural motion, because I was actually quite disappointed that we had to debate the issue of the sanitary bins separately. And as someone said, it's not really about a choice between discriminating and money saving, really. And so I'd like to think that we are going to vote for it so that we can actually improve inclusion for all of our trans students. Thank you.
We will now move to the vote. So, if you would like this policy to be passed, then please raise your cards now. Okay, thank you. No need for tellers. And if you don't want this policy to be passed, then please raise your card now. Okay, the policy is passed. Right, I need to go visit one of these toilets we've just been debating. So I'm going to hand over to DG while I have a quick comfort break.
Of doing a comfort break if you wanted to take it.
I'm going to quickly get the feel of the room as to if generally the members would like a comfort break. When you need to go, you need to go. So if you'd like to take a comfort break for 5 minutes, raise your voting cards. We'll see you in 5. Thank you, everyone.
Brilliant, Cherry.
I'm all about the beats and the lyrics, so when you hear it, you can feel it. The vibe is energized by the presence of my spirit. No interference, we persevere.